الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر.
The next area that we need to consider is Muslim worship. The 5 acts of worship, or as they are sometimes called, the 5 pillars of Islam. The first of these 5 acts is the witness, or the shahada. Now, what is the shahada? Well, the shahada is the witness that the person praying such is a true believer in al-Islam. He says, I bear witness that there is no God but the one God. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. That is repeated twice. Then he says, I bear witness that Muhammad is the messenger of God. Ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah. And he repeats this twice. Now, when is the Shahada recited? It's recited at the beginning of every prayer for the Muslim. There are 5 times that the Muslim prays. This is the second pillar of Islam, ritual prayer. First of all, he prays in the early morning. That would be any time after dawn, but before sunrise. So that would be an approximate time frame of 2 hours. As the tradition says, from the time you can distinguish a white thread from a black, you can begin praying. The second time of prayer is noon. That would be any time after the sun begins to decline from its zenith until it's midway on its course to setting. The third time of prayer is mid-afternoon. That is right after the expiration of the noon prayer time until sunset. The fourth time of prayer is at sunset. That is immediately after sunset until the glow of the sun in the western horizon disappears. And then finally, the fifth time of prayer is evening prayer. That begins after the red glow in the western horizon disappears until just a little before dawn. Now, it's important to note that at least 4 things must be done prior to every prayer. First of all, there is the ablution. And there is a very elaborate process that the Muslim has to go through when he washes himself prior to prayers. Secondly, he must assure purity of the whole body, the clothes, the ground used for prayer from all kinds of dirt. If the Muslim in some way becomes unclean during the process of prayer, such as a bodily emission of some sort, then he must begin prayers all over again after having cleansed himself again. Thirdly, he must dress properly to meet the moral regulation of covering all of his private parts. And for the female, that means the whole body should be covered except for the face, the hands, and the feet. Fourthly, he must declare the intention of prayer by both heart and tongue if possible. It's not adequate to simply bow down and pray. He must say he's going to pray. Fifthly, he must face in the right direction of Qibla, that is the direction of the Kaaba at Mecca. Now, there are a number of different kinds of prayer that the Muslim engages in. First of all, there is the obligatory prayer. That includes the 5 daily prayers and the Friday noon congregational meeting, and then finally the funeral prayer. These are called the fard prayers, the obligatory prayers. But there are also what they have called supererogatory prayers. That would include the prayers accompanying the obligatory services and in the congregations of the 2 great festivals. These earn extra merit. We need to note that all of the obligatory or fard prayers follow a very specific format. One is not allowed to deviate from that format. So he or she must use specific wording in a specific order. Supererogatory prayers, on the other hand, allow for a degree of improvisation, and they can earn the person who prays extra merit before God. And these would include prayers accompanying the obligatory or fard prayers, as well as prayers during the congregations of the great festivals. So there is a place for Muslims to pray outside of that. And then finally, there is optional prayer, which includes all voluntary prayers at any time, day or night. But note this, If a person has missed some of the obligatory or fard prayers, the supererogatory or voluntary prayers are not required from him. Instead, he must make up for the obligatory prayers he has missed and offer the obligatory prayers first. Also, the supererogatory prayers are not required if the due time for the accompanying fast has expired. If a person misses any prayer and wants to make up for it, he has to offer the obligatory prayers only. It's also interesting that the Muslim is forbidden to offer either obligatory or supererogatory prayers first when the sun is rising, when the sun is at its zenith, when the sun is setting. For women during a period of menstruation or confinement due to childbirth and nursing, it's forbidden during the time of impurity, whether partial or complete. And with the exception of women and any who are insane or remain unconscious for a time, every Muslim must make up for his delayed obligatory prayers. The third pillar is fasting during the month of Ramadan. The fast of Ramadan commemorates the giving of the Quran to Muhammad, and Muslims are required to fast from sunrise to sunset during the entire month. During this time, the Muslim is to abstain completely from food, drink, sexual intercourse, and smoking from before the break of dawn until sunset during the entire 9th month of the Islamic year. Fasting is obligatory on every responsible and fit Muslim, whether he be male or female. On the other hand, children under the age of puberty or the age of discretion, insane people who are not accountable for their deeds, men and women who are too old and feeble to undertake the hardships of the fast, sick people whose health is likely to be severely impaired, these people can either postpone the fast or in some cases not have to make it up at all. Those who are traveling may postpone the fast, but they have to make it up a day for a day. Expectant women or those nursing their children must make up the fast at a delayed time, but again, it's a day for a day. Women in the period of menstruation must postpone their fast until they recover, and then they make it up, again, a day for a day. Now, the festival of fast breaking, Eid al-Fitr, occurs following the month of Ramadan on the first day of the next month or the 10th month of the Muslim year. The fourth pillar of Islamic belief is almsgiving or zakat. Now, almsgiving is a combination of charity, almsgiving, a tax, a tithe, an expression of kindness, and more. It's a duty enjoined by God and undertaken by Muslims in the interest of society as a whole, according to their teaching. So it goes beyond charity. It's an obligation to every Muslim. The literal meaning of the term zakat is purity. The technical meaning of the word means the annual amount in kind or coin which a Muslim must distribute among the rightful beneficiaries, that is, people to whom it is due. And when it is not observed properly, the rightful authorities of the state must interfere on behalf of the public to establish the institution and see that it is enforced. So you can see right away it's not exactly the same as charity. Those who receive zakat are those who have nothing to meet their needs or who have less than $15 at the end of the year. If they receive their share and have sufficient to meet their needs with a balance of about 15, they should not accept any more. Also, note that zakat is limited to Muslim beneficiaries, unlike charity, which can help anyone in need. Zakat is calculated at a 2.5% rate of one's total assets, cash or otherwise, at the end of each year. And if the investment is immovable property like revenue buildings or industries, the zakat is calculated at the rate of the net income, not on the rate of the value of the whole property. But if the person puts the buildings up for sale or trade, then the rate should go by the value of the entire property. Also, the person pays only for his net increase. He does not pay for the entire balance. One's personal expenses, family allowances, necessary expenditures, and due credits are taken out first, and then the zakat is calculated on what's left. Also, 2.5% is the minimum. In times of emergency, including state emergency, there is no limit, and the more one gives, the better it is for all who are concerned. Zakat funds are used to relieve the distress of poor Muslims, to supply needy Muslims with a means whereby they can earn their livelihood, to enable new Muslim converts to settle down and to meet unusual needs, to liberate Muslim prisoners of war by payment of ransom money, to free Muslims in debt from their liabilities incurred under pressing circumstances, to pay the wages of Muslim employees appointed by a Muslim governor to collect zakat, and then to pay the expenses of those who are doing research and study in the service of God and the propagation of Islam, and finally to take care of Muslim wayfarers who are stranded in foreign lands who are in need of help. The final pillar of Islam is the Hajj, or the pilgrimage. Every Muslim, male or female, who's mentally, financially, and physically fit is obligated to make a pilgrimage to Mecca at least once during his or her lifetime. The pilgrimage takes place annually following Ramadan in the 12th month of the Muslim lunar calendar. The focus of the pilgrimage is the Kaaba, or the cube-shaped house of God in which the sacred black stone is embedded. According to Muslim tradition, the Kaaba was originally constructed by Ibrahim, or Abraham, and his son Ismail. The black stone was given to Abraham by the angel Gabriel and is a symbol of God's covenant with Ismail and by extension to the whole Muslim community. Tradition tells us that one of the first things Muhammad did when he marched into Mecca was cleanse the Kaaba of tribal idols that it housed, restoring it to the worship of the one true God. As they enter Mecca, pilgrims will process to the Grand Mosque where the Kaaba is located, and moving in a counterclockwise direction, they circle the Kaaba 7 times. During the following days, a variety of ritual actions or ceremonies will take place. First of all, they will pray at the place where Abraham stood. Then they will run between Safa and Marwa in commemoration of Hagar's frantic search for water for her son Ismail. Third, they will stone the devil, that is 3 pillars that symbolize evil. An essential part of the pilgrimage is a visit to the plain of Arafat, where from noon to sunset, pilgrims stand before God in repentance, seeking His forgiveness for themselves and for all Muslims throughout the world. It was also here from the Mount of Mercy that Muhammad, during his farewell message, in his farewell pilgrimage, preached his last sermon. The preacher will repeat Muhammad's call for peace and harmony among Muslim believers. The pilgrimage will end with a feast of sacrifice, Eid al-Adha, known in Islam as the Great Feast, which commemorates Abraham's obedience to God's command to sacrifice his son Ismail. The pilgrims ritually reenact Abraham's rejection of Satan's temptations to ignore God's command by again casting stones at the devil, here represented by a pillar. Afterwards, they sacrifice sheep, goats, cattle, or camels, as Abraham was finally permitted to substitute a ram for his son. And while some of the meat is consumed, most of it is supposed to be distributed to the poor and needy. And the Feast of Sacrifice is a worldwide Muslim celebration that lasts 3 days, which is a time of rejoicing, prayer, and visiting with family and friends.